Oh my gosh!
The Battlefield franchise has been in freefall for the past decade, with 2 consecutive failures having brought this once legendary series to the brink of destruction. Battlefield 5 was a commercial and critical failure, with a tone-deaf marketing campaign, a broken live service model, and a fundamentally flawed execution that alienated the core Battlefield fanbase. Then, 2042 was the final nail in the coffin, a complete disaster that stripped away everything that made Battlefield special. It was a buggy and broken launch, with terrible map design, and the specialists replaced the beloved classic class system. With 2 back-to-back catastrophic failures, the Battlefield name is now synonymous with disappointment and broken promises. And EA knows that this is their last chance to revive the Battlefield franchise, as they have pulled every single Battlefield studio off other projects and thrown all of them onto Battlefield 6. Recent investor calls reveal a desperate expectation of 100 million players across the base game and the upcoming free-to-play Battle Royale mode. If Battlefield 6 fails, the entire Battlefield franchise is dead, and there's no coming back from 3 consecutive failures. But with the stakes being this high, things seem to be working out. The beta numbers are impressive, with over 500,000 concurrent players on Steam alone, exceeding Call of Duty Warzone's peak player count. Combined with other platforms, the total is likely much higher. However, the Battlefield community remains deeply skeptical, with many people vowing to not pre-order the game and urging others to hold the line until EA proves that they have learned from their mistakes. But the central question remains, is Battlefield truly back, and can it break the cycle of disappointment and failure? So here's my review after extensively playing the beta. First, let's start out with some technical issues. Players have discovered glitch routes on the Siege of Cairo map using parkour, and while finding exploits in betas is expected and useful for developers, DICE confirmed that the next beta uses this exact same build, so unfortunately these exploits will still persist into the second beta weekend. However, the cheating situation is much more concerning. EA's anti-cheat system blocked over 330,000 cheaters during this beta alone. Wall hacks and other cheats are already present. And this is particularly concerning given that DICE implemented an anti-cheat requiring secure boots on PCs, a fairly invasive security measure. In fact, it's so invasive it conflicts with other kernel level anti-cheats, essentially forcing you to uninstall any conflicting software. It even forces you to uninstall Valorant, as both of their anti-cheats conflict. Despite this level of security, the volume of cheating attempts raises serious concerns for the full release, particularly for the planned free-to-play Battle Royale mode. Now moving on to Destruction. The Destruction, it represents a significant visual upgrade from 2042. The buildings collapse realistically, the smoke is volumetric and interacts with the geometry properly, and glass particles have physics that interact with weapons and movement. These details really contribute to a next-gen feel, and is likely possible because Battlefield 6 isn't releasing on the old-gen consoles. However, some of the elements that I would have expected to be destructible simply weren't, and the large-scale Levolution events from Battlefield 4 are absent, at least from the beta maps. Now when it comes to the gunplay, it feels substantially improved compared to recent entries. The time to kill feels appropriate, short enough for consistent kills but not instant. However, the time to death presents issues with inconsistent registration, creating a super bullet effect, where damage appears to register in 1 or just a few frames.
Whoa, what was that netcode? Yo, that netcode is wild.
Thankfully, DICE have acknowledged this netcode inconsistency, with the lead producer for Battlefield on Twitter saying, the time to death is very much on the priority list. Suppression is now actually useful, with health regeneration being delayed while suppressed, so it's not just a visual effect anymore. This restores the area denial roll for machine gunners and gives you a reason to suppress fire as you push. When it comes to sniping, the sweet spot mechanic from Battlefield 1 returns, allowing one-shot upper chest kills within specific ranges. Now personally, I'm rather conflicted about this. It does reduce the skill ceiling, making range management more important than being precise and getting headshots. However, I did personally prefer the sniping in BF1 to BF4. It was more fun, but that just might be a skill issue on my part. However, the portal mode should allow you to customize this mechanic anyway. Also, the sniper glints are currently way too strong and should be dialed back before launch. Another new mechanic is the new dragging revive system. It's extremely well implemented and it allows you to seamlessly recover your teammate while maintaining cover. And when it comes to recoil, the weapons did seem a little bit beamy, but the lead producer for Battlefield has said on Twitter that they will receive a balanced pass before launch. so that should make recoil feel a bit more noticeable and force you to have to burst fire for longer ranges. And also, thankfully the shotgun will get nerfed. If any of you have played the beta, you'll know that the shotgun is way too OP. But other than the shotgun and the recoil, the overall weapon balance does feel pretty reasonable. Now when it comes to maps, this is probably the most critical issue that I found in the beta. First of all, the balance issues are extremely prevalent in these maps, particularly in Breakthrough, where attackers frequently experience spawn trapping with limited ability to advance from starting position. But even in Conquest, I found myself either spawn trapping the enemy or getting spawn trapped, depending on what side of the map you're on. Also, the map size is a huge problem. All of these 3 maps feel extremely small. Liberation Peak comes closest to the classic Battlefield scale, but it still feels constrained. The Empire State map will be arriving in the second part of the beta, but that still seems relatively small, at least considering the footage that I've seen. I hope that there will be larger maps for the full launch, as the beta map selection doesn't fully showcase the classic Battlefield sandbox experience. Now let's talk about the settings and the UI issues. The user interface requires significant cleanup. The settings are scattered across multiple submenus with redundant options and poor organization. Manual adjustment per vehicle type also adds unnecessary complexity. However, I think if they just add a search function to the settings, that would be a pretty simple fix. I also faced a glitch where attachments would sometimes not apply if I was in the middle of a game and had to wait for the next game to be able to apply certain attachments. Now let's talk about matchmaking and the server browser. The server browser for Battlefield 6 has now been rebranded as Portal, and this initially raised concern among players who were worried about the functionality being similar to that in 2042. However, developers have clarified that Portal is effectively the new server browser. However, there's still some ambiguity about exactly how the new server browser system will work. The lead producer for Battlefield did respond to someone on Twitter. I don't understand the problem. Wouldn't it be better to have a server browser exactly like Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, where you could find both custom and official servers? There's just so much more freedom in that. Never been an issue in previous games. David Sullen responded, "The inherent problem with that model is that you have servers running forever with no games going on. It's very ineffective in utilizing the actual hardware on a whole game perspective. A hybrid solution is to be preferred." Now, if you take a look at the wording, he says ineffective in utilizing the actual hardware. And to me, this just seems like EA caring more about the bottom line and not trying to waste money on servers, rather than just giving the community exactly what they want. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if the server browser functionality is up to scratch on the full release. I also had quite a few games where there was huge amounts of lagging and rubber banding going on. Now I chalked this up to the fact that I was streaming, but it seems to be something that other people have noticed too. Now one of the things that I did like was that Battlefield 6 has now returned to a classic class system, completely eliminating the specialist system from 2042. It also has class locked weapons. Now in the beta there was 2 playlists. There was the class locked playlist and the open weapons playlist. I mostly played in the open weapon servers, so I prefer using like the DMRs and the carbines, but you can use the class locked servers if you want. Even on the open weapon servers, you do still get certain incentives or buffs if you use the class's actual proper weapon. Now I do like this system, but I'll probably change which classes get what weapon. For example, I wouldn't give the engineer an SMG. I'll probably switch that with the support class. So the support class will get the SMG and the engineer class will get the carbine. To me that makes way more sense. If you think about it, the medic is the one who's pushing up close to get revives. So to me the SMG seems like the natural weapon for that class. And engineer, depending on their range, is going to be sometimes close range, sometimes long range. So to me carbine makes more sense. Also the recon class should probably get expanded to not just be sniper rifles, but to also include DMRs. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think in the comments about that. Now visually, the game maintains an authentic military aesthetic, with realistic social models, environments and equipment. This contrasts sharply with Call of Duty's current cosmetic direction, with cartoons and different pop culture characters. Now thankfully, the design director has explicitly stated the intention to keep cosmetics grounded and realistic. However, visibility issues do exist, with character lighting and contrast, making it difficult to actually see enemy players, particularly when transitioning between inside and outdoors. But overall, the visuals in Battlefield 6 do look amazing. When it comes to sound design, DICE has a renowned reputation, and they certainly didn't disappoint. The sound design in BF6 is exceptional, with high quality gunfire, explosion and vehicle sounds that enhance the immersion especially on the very aggressive listening sound setting. The only thing that's bad is that the footsteps are way too quiet. Now moving on to the vehicles. The vehicle performance varied significantly by type. The tanks are balanced quite well, but suffer from sluggish controls. The jets seem similar to 2042, which is okay, however the heli controls are absolute trash. Helicopters feel disconnected and unresponsive, especially compared to Battlefield 4. I also experienced weird jittering glitches on both the jets and the tanks, and this is unclear if it's because I'm using a controller on a PC or if it's actually a game bug.
There's some weird jittering.
And overall, the vehicles probably need to be buffed slightly, especially considering how powerful the engineer is. The engineer can basically solo a tank and can take out hoppers with just one stinger. Now let's move on to performance and stability. Overall, the performance has been pretty great. I only had one crash, but overall it seems pretty stable, and I probably only got that crash because I was streaming and recording simultaneously on OBS while playing the game. Other than that, I got 60 frames per second locked on auto graphic settings. My PC is a relatively mid-range setup. In conclusion, the core Battlefield DNA is present in this beta. Classic moments of chaos, destruction, and teamwork focused gameplay have returned after years of absence. And for a beta, I'll give this an 8 out of 10, but there are 4 critical improvements that are needed before launch. The first thing is that we need way larger maps. We need traditional Battlefield scale maps with room for flanking, strategic movement, and proper combined arms gameplay, not just all infantry focused maps. Second of all, the aircrafts need to be completely overhauled, especially the helicopter, where its entire control system needs a complete rework. Number 3, we need the server browser, persistent servers, and the traditional server browsing experience from Battlefield 4, not just limited to Portal. And last but not least, the launch of Battlefield 6 needs to be stable. It seems as though Battlefield games are cursed with always having bad launches, so hopefully they can have stable performance from day one. Addressing these issues could deliver the definitive Battlefield experience the community has waited for, and allow Battlefield to break the seemingly endless cycle of disappointment. But anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.